Over the course of our journey, we set out to learn about a growing issue within the tourism industry: voluntourism. Voluntourism is defined as the idea of volunteers who travel to developing countries on international development programs with the intent of bettering the local community. The question that guided our research was, does our help really make a difference, or are we only becoming involved with voluntourism for our own self-benefit? To better understand the controversy behind this concept, we conducted interviews with local people and experts. From these discussions, we gained real-life examples of how voluntourism affects the lives of the locals. We received a mixture of positive and negative views of the topic from both the macro and micro levels.
So my thoughts on voluntourism stem from the fact that this is a newer phenomenon, trying to address the interests of more socially conscious consumers who formerly would have only had typical tourist options and then now have a way to try and incorporate some of their socially conscious interests with their ability to travel. So volunteerism is a newer concept emerging in the market, but it really originates from tourism. And it's an extension of what tourism opportunities are available. And because of that origin in tourism, it really serves to benefit the traveler, the tourist. So it incorporates a volunteer element, but that's not really the driving factor behind tourism. So while there may be some benefits that accrue to the host community, it's really been created to benefit the traveler or the tourist.
Local guides believe in the positive impacts of voluntourism and highlight the projects that volunteers have completed to assist the communities.
Visitors?
Yes, because when we take groups like this, when they come to see how the community is, individually, people tend to come and help. Like the library that we saw in the community, it was built by one person that we took to the place, and he felt that he needed to impact on the community. So he came to build this, and also they accept volunteer work. I mean, people do come there from the outside Ghana. They come to do volunteer work. They help with the students. They'll be in the school for some months, or with the clinic, or something. Yeah. So there are so many benefits that they do. Well, they appreciate that one day, and I think that the guy that said it, that one day they expect that having come there for the first time, when you go back, you think about them and you come back to either do volunteer work or you come to help them in one way or the other. Whatever you think you have observed that you can use to help them. For example, the library that was built, somebody saw that they needed a library for the children to read, and they came to put up that. So they appreciate anything that you have observed that they lack, and you come and give.
Various clubs, they are coming forward, volunteering, raising funds to help the poor children, to build houses, to collect money, to distribute study materials, school uniforms, and there are sick people where they are widows or aged people, aged persons. So it is happening. It is very common to have this kind of charity work.
He said everything is work. So for example, come teaching here, also the children have the idea what the world look like. Otherwise they are staying in a very small world. They don't know. And also by the advertising that people will know and they get more help. Okay. Also with money, that is how they can provide the teachers' salary to be long term. It's not only for teacher salary, this is also helping them, the teacher, to continue their university.
Despite the positive effects of foreign involvement in underprivileged communities, there are also several downsides that need to be addressed. The desire to volunteer in other countries is very strong, but it is possible to negatively impact local communities when engaging in a volunteerist trip operation.
So, a question about the negative impacts of voluntourism. First off, I think it's important to even recognize that there are negative impacts of voluntourism. Most often when people sort of share that they're going on a volunteer tourism experience, it's all with positive enthusiasm. So recognizing that there are two sides to this situation is the first step, awareness, the first piece of it. Recognizing that the experience really is to benefit the traveler. So the benefit to the host community is often limited, minimal, and can often at times be detrimental. So negating the negative impacts is really difficult because inherent in the opportunity is that you're implying there's some sort of power differential, some capital, some differential that puts the tourist in a position where they have something to give the host community. That is not always the case.
And I suppose the reason I have slight concerns and doubts is because of the white savior narrative. I think there's a bit of an issue there around the idea that somehow people from the global north are equipped and able to actually help, in inverted commas, people in other parts of the world.
But I think that it's not always advantageous for the site where you go as a tourist. For example, if there's, let's say, a wall needs to be built, and so a group of young people goes and they build the wall. That's nice because the organization that needed the wall gets the wall, but on the other hand, this group of kids may collaboratively have spent $10,000 to get there to do it, and with $10,000 you could employ a lot of the nationals in the country that you've gone to build the wall. So I think it's very much a matter of what you're going to do, and again, whether you can make an impact that doesn't take anything away from the people there who really need it.
This is a completed mural from other volunteer groups who have visited the same school in Vietnam. Unfortunately, the mural was very poorly done and is likely going to be painted over by the next volunteer group. It is hard to believe that the school truly needed the colorful murals when they could have benefited much more from monetary donations or supplies.
I do think that redesigning voluntourism might be helpful in a way that probably, I think we need to think more about impact, long-term impact. What is it we really want to achieve beyond, a nice experience for the person and maybe some benefits for the supposed beneficiaries, but probably improve the way that we measure impact, improve the goals that be much more careful about the goals that we want to achieve.
Not all volunteer projects fall under the category of voluntourism. Offering one's assistance out of respect for the people is a way to thank the locals for their gracious hospitality and become involved in a community on a deeper level.
So, question about the difference between short-term and long-term volunteerism and how that can impact the communities. So really, it's hard to do anything short-term, whether or not it's learning a topic or developing relationships or having a positive impact. But that balances off with the fact that most of us have limited time available to travel. So a spring break or a family vacation really is constrained to 1 or 2 weeks or a limited time frame. So most of the experiences are going to fall within that short term. But inherently with that limited time frame, you just don't get the chance to really get to know people in your community and find out what it is they really need.
The problem with going for a week, let's say, is that I think that the children themselves develop a set of expectations. They may become attached to the volunteers and vice versa. And then you're there one day and then you're gone the next. It can be an awfully painful process for both sides. So I think that the longer that you can stay, the better. The more that you get to know a community, the better. The more that they will ask you for what is needed. That will occur more over the long term.
So maybe you were brought to a country with the intent that you were going to help, build a wall for the school, but that's what you were told they need. You don't really know if that's what they need. So long-term provides you the opportunity to build those relationships and get to find out what the true needs are and interests of the community. Just because we think they need a wall, maybe they don't think they need a wall.
We find that in most cases when people have actually anywhere in the world made progress, it's usually by their own means and through their own resources and through their own initiative. And one could probably wonder and ask whether trying to help actually creates a form of dependency and a form of passivity that is probably even harmful in the case of the people that one is trying to help.
Here are some considerations for those who would like to be involved abroad, but would also like to avoid negatively impacting the community that they want to help.
So how do you go about being involved in international volunteering if that's something you're interested in? That's a great question. And there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of organizations who are seeking people that are interested in their mission and interested in their organization and need, frankly, more people and resources to make the kind of impact they want. But that requires a lot of research on behalf of the traveler. So the greatest impact is probably not going to come from a prepackaged program marketed by a tourism agency. So in terms of identifying an opportunity, I would recommend focusing on a region you're interested in and then focusing on finding an organization within that region that you agree with their mission and you can learn about the work they're doing, and then approaching that organization and saying, what can I do? How could I help you?
You always have to begin with find someone you trust. I mean, that's really key. So trust all the avenues that you are going through to get to where you want to go. That's the first thing. So be sure of who's referring you to the organization. Check out the organization and so on. Trust is very key.
By A, being long-term and sustainable, B, only going where they're invited to be, and C, really being about the sort of person-to-person relationships and creating that connection between the volunteer and the counterpart and working at that grassroots level to kind of ensure that what's being done is relevant to the community that they're in.
Ask, okay, so where are you sending me? Who is it that is running it? Can I speak to them ahead of time and get some agreement on what it is they want? And I'm saying that because, if you're going somewhere and you're part of an ongoing project, all those things that I've mentioned need to be in place. Why are the people doing this? Who has the authority? What is the space that is, if you help creating a space, what is it being used and so on. And I think that you really can't get around that.
Oh golly, well the very first thing is to learn all that you can about the community in terms especially of levels of corruption.
I'd be mindful of the broader context in which work is done. What is government in that country doing? What is the public sector doing? Is it using volunteerism and development aid as a substitute for good policies? In that case, pull out and run for your life, because that is the worst thing you can do, is to substitute yourself to government, what should be the role of government.
Voluntourism can be beneficial to underprivileged communities, and volunteering one's time can have a huge impact on specific projects. That being said, there are a lot of precautions that need to be taken to ensure that the volunteer project that one decides to engage in addresses the needs of the local people rather than the interest of the tour group. So, how do we get involved in international projects in a positive way? Thorough research about the organization must be performed before engaging in any volunteerist activities. Additionally, one must make sure that they are going into the program with no selfish intentions. They must be fully committed as well as mentally prepared for the experience, especially since long-term projects are preferred. But usually, the best way to get involved is by demonstrating a genuine interest in the needs of a community. Getting to know the culture of the areas that you are visiting, as well as conversing with local people, can be impactful for both tourists and locals alike. Building relationships and exchanging conversations will often do much more for a community than simply engaging in a surface-level volunteerist project.
I think it's good that this has become an issue, in the sense that it shows a recognition of wanting to share, to give, but the danger is always the attitude of the mind. Like, how can I say, in my family studies class, I always have a section where I'm talking about social justice philanthropy and letting us understand the difference between charity and social justice philanthropy. There's nothing wrong with charity, and sometimes it's what's needed, especially in situations of urgency and emergency. But social justice work, social justice philanthropy, social justice volunteering, is setting out to change the conditions under which you need that charity work. And so, for me, getting volunteerism out of the mindset of charity work to the mindset of social justice does require the local knowledge to see what social justice looks like and what it's they want, you know. So get it out of, I want to feel good and tell my friends I went to, you know, help build so many houses in Ghana, which, you know, are useful. But what was it a part of? What was it a part of? What is the legacy? When you leave, you have actually changed something structurally to really alleviate the conditions under which you